Good evening and welcome to the first of two Beyond the Front Page programs today for the spring 2018 semester here at KU Community College. And these are shows that are broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as the college's radio station, WIN 89.1. I'm Guy Cosentino here on behalf of the college. Founded 150 years ago this year by Henry Wells, the founder of Wells Fargo and American Express. Wells College sits on 300 acres overlooking Cayuga Lake. The co-ed private college averages about 500 students enrolled every year who attend the four-year liberal arts college. A little over 2.5 years ago, the Wells Board of Trustees named their 19th president, Jonathan GIBRALTER, who received his Bachelor's of Arts degree from Binghamton, a PhD from Syracuse, an MBA from the University of Maryland, and another degree mixed in there as well. While Wells is a private college, the state of New York does have an impact on its finances and its enrollment. We've asked the doctor on to talk to us not only about the state's impact, and especially Governor Cuomo's Excelsior Scholarship Program, but also what else is going on at the institution and what else is going on in the news at Wells. Welcome.
Thank you, Guy. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. I would be remiss if we didn't start, as I think I am doing every show for the last 10 days, with something about guns. So there was a lockdown, yes, a shelter-in-place directive at Utica College, 3 counties over. How big a worry is campus security to you now?
In fact, tomorrow afternoon we're having active shooter training for our faculty, staff, and students. It's always a concern, and I think that what you hear more and more nationally is people are being more prepared for it, but in every instance you always hear people say, we never thought it would happen here. Small, rural, private, quiet, peaceful, you just never know anymore.
So unlike a high school, which are usually one central building, or in Parkland it was not, oddly enough, but in most cases you can shelter in place, you can lock down the school. You have at least, if I was trying to count in my back of my mind's eye, you have at least 12 buildings. Sure. How do you secure those buildings?
It's not easy, but we have a campus protocol in place where we have people who will go through each and every building, lock down classrooms. We actually had a possible incident a couple of years ago, Guy, and it turned out to be nothing. But we were able to lock the place down in about 20 minutes, and then we're able to escort all of our students safely over to the residence halls where they sheltered in place outside of all the academic
So you have a
buildings.
shelter-in-place protocol?
We do.
Do you, I know you have security on campus, but do you have armed security?
They are not armed. No,
Okay.
they're campus safety, not
Is that something
police.
that you have to look at now?
No, I don't think so. You know, I'm not sure that arming our campus safety officers would really prevent any kind of an incident on campus. You know, I said this on National Public Radio a couple of years ago. Anybody who thinks that they can stop something untoward from happening is probably not telling you the truth. You know, you do the best you can. You try to protect your people, but these are crazy times.
So where it used to be we were worried about fire drills, now it sounds like it's lockdown drills.
It is. It makes people really incredibly tense.
So while this has been an issue that's been discussed in public schools, you've heard the president talk about arming teachers.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about arming professors?
I'm absolutely opposed to arming teachers or professors. I think the more guns you bring into the school, the more you stand a chance of something really bad happening. So, you know, I'm very much in favor of a rational gun control policy. And if you look at other countries like Canada, where they make it incredibly difficult to get guns and they get a lot of the weapons off the street, you have a much lower incidence of these types of things ever occurring.
So this is a question I'm not asking others, because you have dealt with the issue of alcohol on campuses.
That's right.
And to some degree that is a whole lot of issues that are involved there. But one facet of that is mental health. Right. Do you think this gun issue is a mental health issue? Looking at it from your perspective, you've been nationally recognized on the alcohol issue.
You know, Guy, you think about it. Regardless of what's going on in your life, you walk into a building and you just start shooting people. Is it a mental health issue? I think so, right? I mean, because a sane person doesn't do that. So I think in every instance, it's certainly a mental health issue. The question is, do we know beforehand whether somebody's going to be at risk? And the answer is, look at what you're reading about what happened in Florida, what happened in many of those cases. People said, we alerted the authorities, we knew this person was a gun waiting to go off. I mean, people read all the signs, but yet law enforcement can't intervene until they do something. Something's wrong with the system.
So you mentioned law enforcement. Obviously, we have a county sheriff and state police in Cuyahoga County. In the case of this college and the Auburn schools, you have the Auburn Police Department, and they have armed SROs on at most of the schools. Do you worry about response times to incidences? Because I've always said one of the toughest jobs in Cuyahoga County is being a sheriff's deputy. Just because you don't have backup and you're 20 minutes from the nearest backup sometimes.
So imagine response time in Aurora, New York, where they may be 20 miles away at the outset. So yeah, I do worry about response time. It doesn't take a lot of time for somebody to pull out a automatic weapon and do a lot of damage very, very quickly. So, and even where response time is fast, where the authorities are close by, there's still a lot of damage that gets done before they actually process, know what's going on, get informed, lock down the school, and are able to make a difference.
So how many students do you have on campus on a given year?
We're between 450 and 500, small place.
And what degrees do you offer?
We offer many of the traditional liberal arts degrees, although recently in the past 2 years we're now offering a bachelor's degree in business, a bachelor's degree in sustainability studies. We have a BS in health sciences, we have a degree in criminal justice, and we're now authorized. We have a BS in inclusive early childhood education, and we're now also authorized by the state to offer the BS, not just the BA degree.
So sustainable, I know that's Marion Brown, who happens to be a member of our board of trustees. For those who may not know what that is, what is that?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of green jobs out there today, but it's how to preserve the planet. You know, Guy, you and I are old enough to remember back in the 70s when we had to wait online for odd even gas rationing. We have a limited amount of resource in this country and on our planet. And I think that young people today are more motivated and invested in wanting to have a sustainable future than we were back then. We did a lot of damage. I see a lot of young people today wanting to correct it.
So you mentioned a couple of newer programs you have. Do you have, most of the students on your campus are studying liberal arts still? Is that
the largest programs on campus right now are psychology, our science programs, and some of our liberal art programs, but business is starting to really come on strong, and I think health science is really going to take off also.
Is there something that you say is a signature program?
I think right now, you know, the heart of Wells is a broad liberal arts education. So, you know, it's not so much preparing. I mean, I was interim president of a community college and worked at Corning Community College, Mohawk Valley Community College. Career prep is probably very much a part of what you do, but you know, for us, it's not teaching people what to learn; it's teaching them how to learn. It's preparing students to be competitive, to think, to write, to work as members of a group. It's really the broad skills because, you know this. A lot of young people today will change their majors several times, and people will change their jobs, their careers several times over the course of their life. And for a lot of people graduating from college today, the job that they'll eventually have hasn't even been created yet.
Right. So where it used to be you would stay in a job 20, 30 years, you're changing jobs every 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, you're not seeing it anymore where people are staying in careers.
How large a faculty do you have?
We have about 30 full-time tenure-track faculty and about another 20 either adjunct or contingent contractual faculty on one-year assignments.
And do most of your students live on campus?
95% of the students at Wells live on campus.
Does that mean the other 5% are either abroad or are they commuters?
Both.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll talk about your study abroad program. Okay. Do you have any idea what your percentages of students who are from either Cuyahoga County or the central New York area?
I can say that when I started at Wells 2.5 years ago, we only had 1 student from Cuyahoga County. This year we have 13. So I think that speaks highly to the work that we're doing to get the word out about Wells locally and across the state, and also the partnership that exists between Cayuga Community College and Wells College and all the community colleges.
So back in October, you and Dr. Brian Duran of Cayuga Community College were here on this campus to sign an agreement.
That's right.
What was it for?
We were trying to create an economic pathway to make education affordable for students who come to Cayuga Community College, get your highest level of scholarship, perform really well, and then transfer to Wells College with no loss of credit and get the highest scholarship that we offer at Wells College.
So your hope is that someone who starts here at a 2, finishes, gets their associate's degree, they will just funnel into Wells.
Our hope is that Wells will just be another option for them, and that they'll be on their agenda and they'll consider coming to Wells.
And is there a cost to a student who finishes, meets the criteria here and transfers over to Wells?
There'll be a cost of about $12,000 a year plus room and board, which is another $14,000
to the student.
To the student, yes.
Okay.
That's after scholarships.
And how much do you have to subsidize in that?
We will subsidize about $28,000 off of the cost of their education, their tuition.
So is this an effort to keep students local? Is this an effort to build enrollment at your college? Because I know privates, and we'll get into Excelsior in a few minutes, you have some other issues that are outside forces. Or is this, what's the reasoning behind this from Wells' perspective?
I think everything that you said. As I said earlier, I spent 9 years at community colleges in the state of New York. I really value what they're all about. And so for me, opportunities to get students who graduate from a community college like Cayuga over to Wells, I'd love to see that happen. I've always believed that colleges in the same community shouldn't be competing with each other. They should be cooperating and collaborating. If that builds enrollment, that's great.
And your hope, you said you went from 1 to 13 of Cayuga County residents. Is your hope that this will be another class this May at commencement, another class of presidential scholars? I know they qualify for this. You'll have Emerson scholars next year as well as president. Is your hope that you'll have some of those come over this coming fall?
Oh, the door's open, and we'd love to have them come over this fall.
But you're not at a point right now where you're tracking those numbers.
We are. I just don't happen to know what they are.
Okay. All right. So the other, if people look back at the last 10, 15 years at Wells, the other defining issue for Wells has been this issue of going co-ed.
Sure.
About a decade ago. What's your split? Do you have a demographic right now? What's your split between men?
A third of our students are male right now, 2/3 female.
Do you think you'll get to 50-50?
I don't think that any college in the country is getting to 50-50.
Well, I ask this because I know Cazenovia College, I think they converted in 1986 or something like that. And even up to recently, they were not even close to that. And while that might have been the goal, that hasn't been the actual.
It's not our goal. Our goal is that the door is open and we want any qualified student to come to Wells. And you know, we're not seeking 50-50. I mean, the demography of New York State and our high schools isn't 50-50, so we don't expect that we'll get 50-50 at Wells.
And one of the changes that has occurred in New York in the last 8 months, almost a year now, has been Governor Cuomo unveiled for 2- and 4-year SUNY schools the Excelsior program. Quick summary for people who may not know, this is supposedly free college for my terms, not the colleges, by the way, my supposedly free college for those who qualify with a certain GPA, stay in school, complete it within either the 2 or 4, and then have to stay within the state of New York. That's how you understand it?
That's how I understand it.
How's it affected Wells or impacted you?
Well, we didn't know at first. You know, this was kind of out of left field. Even the governor's closest advisors didn't know he was going to do this. It just kind of happened. In a press event he had with Bernie Sanders, and then everybody else had to deal with the fallout of it, right? And that's what everybody's doing. I mean, it's been passed over to the Higher Education Services Corporation to administer. We've had a lot of back and forth with them. I belong to an organization called the Commission for Independent Colleges and Universities, which is, you know, kind of the private arm of advocacy in the state of New York. And we were insistent that why would you do this and at the expense of private college education? And some of us were even saying that it almost appears as though you want to drive us out of business. And so we were able to get the private college piece of it, which is called the Enhanced Tuition Award Program, ETA.
But you had to opt into that or out of that in a very short period of time. Am I correct on that?
We had almost no time to make the decision. Higher Education Services Corporation really didn't know what the guidelines were going to be. They still really don't. And so we opted in because we thought it was the best thing that we could do for our students. We opted in saying that we'd match $60,000. So if the state would give $60,000, I think the award was up to, the maximum was about $3,000 per student, we'd match it. Year one, we've spent about 40 of the 60, and we just decided to opt out for year two.
So you're not doing it. Will that impact students that you currently have, or are those students who are already in this will be carried through for their 4 years?
We're going to carry them through for the 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to pull the scholarship support
And you were
out.
one of the, if I remember correctly, you were one of the few colleges that opted in. Many colleges, because they didn't know the numbers,
Right.
said, and if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you opted out, there was no way you could get back in.
Not true. You can opt in or out every
Oh,
year.
you can now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, I opted in because it seemed like something that could really benefit young people. I think that they had their heart in the right place. I just think they launched it so quickly that they operationally didn't know how to administer it. And that's kind of how it's played out.
So $40,000 impacted how many students roughly in your mind?
25 students.
Okay, so
Yeah.
those, would those have been the type of students who might have, instead of going to Wells, would have gone to a 2 or a 4 SUNY school because of the financing?
These were a lot of, we had some first-year students, and we had a couple of returning students. When they launched ETA, the state said that they wanted to favor returning students over first years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
this wasn't, Excelsior was mainly for incoming students. If
Excelsior, I think, was for incoming students, but I think they also wanted to favor returning students as well.
And so I can tell you, I've heard this because I pay attention to it and to a certain degree. Two-year SUNY schools are worried that as time develops and the numbers are too early,
Yeah.
that people are going to go to 4s and they're going to bypass it. Right now, the incentive prior to last year was you go to year 2, then you go to year 4 because it's cheaper at year 2.
Yep.
Is your worry, and is the private schools worry, that because of the way this is set up, that private schools are just not going to be on people's agenda because of the cost alone?
Yeah, Guy, that's a good question. I mean, I can tell you right now, in the face of Excelsior and ETA, for next year, we're already up 25 deposits over last year. Our enrollment's trending upwards.
So people are not applying.
Right, that's
Okay.
right. In fact, we have more applications, we have more inquiries, we have more acceptances, and our paid deposits are up.
And how much does it cost to attend Wells?
Well, it would cost you $48,500 out of pocket, but 99% of our students get scholarship support.
And does that include housing, or is that separate?
That includes everything.
Okay.
Right, room and board and housing. Tuition's $40,000. Average tuition paid by students coming to Wells is about $12,000. So we
Okay.
do give a lot of, I mean, after Pell and New York State TAP, and for the 1 year, the ETA, students are paying an average of about $12,000 a year.
And is TAP being changed?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
It won't be changed for,
No.
separate from how it is impacting Wells, separate from its rollout problems.
Yeah.
Do you think this is really free college?
Well, you tell me. I mean, because you're on the 2-year end of it. I mean, at the end of the day.
And I'm not here representing the college, but
No,
I ask only because I see restrictions about how you live, how students have to keep certain GPAs. My assumption is that while we might, and not to get in trouble, but where we might take a broader swath of students who may have different education levels,
Sure.
you have a much more focused, students who are going on to a 4-year college might have a more defined plan than somebody who has a 2. That's my assumption. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, free, no. I mean, it was never promised at the private schools that it would be free. It was promised that you'd have additional support towards your education. We're actually looking at ways now that we can create a different program where we can take the support that we put into the ETA program and give it to students who have high need and really encourage students to come to Wells without the restrictions and complications of applying for the program.
So New York State impacts you in a number of different ways, and about a month ago, this is how we started this conversation outside of here, was Bundy funding. And first of all, for those who don't know what that is, what's Bundy funding?
So Bundy was put forth by the New York State Legislature back in the 60s, late 60s. It's a source of financial aid and support and scholarships for students who attend the state's private colleges and universities. It's only about $35 million distributed amongst all the campuses based on enrollment.
And how many campuses is that roughly? How many private?
300.
300, okay.
Over 300, yeah. And so, you know, the governor has eliminated it from his executive budget this year. Is it going to kill us if it doesn't make it into the budget? No. But it appears to me that with Excelsior, the elimination of Bundy aid, the complications of the higher ed capital program, I just think the logic isn't there to remove this funding. And, you know, what they're saying is they're going to take the $35 million out of the state budget, and they're going to replace it with HECAP money, which is higher education capital improvement money, which not every campus will get. There's a very strict application process. The campuses have to match the funds 3 to 1. So if you get $100,000 from the state, you got to come up with $300,000. And it takes years. Not every campus gets the award, and it takes years to get. And for example, we got a HECAP award of $145,000 that we applied for 3.5 years ago, and we just got the money last Friday. So how can they say that
dormitory authority?
It is from the dormitory authority.
Because I know they're a slow payer.
Slow payers, my goodness.
Well, no, because I was in a meeting earlier today where it came up, and this is the city, and so we were talking about how tough it is once you get the paperwork in, how they.
Oh my God.
So does the state of New York through Albany give you some capital funds?
No.
They don't make it.
Just this HECAP money is the only source of capital money.
And that's more of an infrastructure investment?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other ways does the state impact you?
New York State Tuition Assistance Program, I suggested to the governor way back when.
This is better known as TAP.
TAP, right. I was suggested to the governor back when they were talking about Excelsior that it made more sense to me to expand the TAP program, but you know, that's not what happened. They created Excelsior because he wanted to make a big blast about free tuition.
Do you think Albany, and I ask this because it almost seems with the litany that you've given us, do you think Albany recognizes the value of private fours?
Guy, I don't know. That's a mystery to me. You know, all I can say is that it's not paranoia if it's really happening. And so I look for evidence. And the evidence would lead me to believe that the state of New York does not support its private colleges.
Because the way I'm perceiving this with this list is that it would be better if they just left you alone. But every time they act, it seems to hurt you.
Yeah,
okay.
That's exactly right.
What's the biggest challenge for Wells in the next 10 years?
I think the challenge for Wells is the challenge for all private colleges and all public colleges. The demography of our nation is changing. You know, a lot of young people today don't see the value in going to college, and so they're not. And of those young people who do go on to college, many of them go to public colleges and universities. So, you know, there may be some ongoing harm done to private colleges.
One of the challenges that Wells had prior to your coming aboard, and I don't know if it still does, is the idea that of housing.
Yeah.
That there's only so many buildings you can build.
Right.
Yes, you have 300 acres, but there's infrastructure that needs to go into place to build things like that. Are there housing challenges so that you can get above that 550 number?
We actually, when I first got to Wells, we brought in an architectural firm, and we have all the planning, 90% of the planning done to build a new 100-bed residence hall. We have the land for it, we have the infrastructure for it, and we decided to step back, see what demography was going to bring our way, get a better sense of enrollment under a new leadership team in our admissions office. And, and we're hoping that in the next 2 years we'll be able to start the project.
Because I know a number of public schools have mothballed some of their dormitories at this stage.
Our dormitories are not at 100%, but they're all
close.
being well utilized.
So when you have 500 students, I'm going to use that number, you have some studying abroad. How many do you have abroad at a given time?
Usually have about 20, 25 abroad to 17 different sites all around the world.
So give us a couple of examples of where.
Bath, England, Florence, Italy, Costa Rica. We have students.
Have you visited any of these?
No, I haven't. Would love to.
That should be on your list of there.
I visited China for a relationship I had at my previous school, and I'm lucky I got home alive.
As I mentioned at the beginning, Wells is celebrating its 150th. What do you have planned?
Well, really a big blowout. So we're, first and foremost, we're developing another time capsule to bury somewheres on campus. We are going to be doing a big event, a series of events on for Homecoming Alumni Weekend, which is going to be, it's actually Fall and Alumni Weekend in October. We're going to have a big parade with our Wells Fargo carriages out. We're going to bring back, hopefully, as many alumna and alumni as possible to march in our parade. We're going to have a big barbecue on the campus. We're going to have a fireworks display. We're 99% sure that the Syracuse Symphoria is going to be coming to campus to perform. We're having a poetry writing. We've commissioned 2 poems, one by an emerita faculty member in the English department and one by a very new faculty in the English department. So we have 2 generations of poems about Wells College and the 150th anniversary.
So many of those items are on campus, and they'll be doing that. Will you be expanding this to the greater Aurora and Cuyahoga County area?
More towards the village and the college right now. We haven't really taken it off campus. Into the rest of Cuyahoga County.
And you'll be rolling those items out?
We'll be putting out an extensive brochure as soon as we get a few things finalized, yeah.
And is most of that going to be in the fall, not necessarily the spring this year?
We're going to, our Founders Day is in July. That's when the actual New York State actually signed the charter in 1868 for Wells College. And we're going to launch a lot of this in the fall.
All right. Well, our guest has been President Jonathan GIBRALTER of Wells College. We want to thank him for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hope you'll come back on. You're always welcome in the studio.
Yeah.
I know Dr. Durant loves having you here on campus, but we do hope that you'll pay attention to what is going on at one of the great institutions in Cuyahoga County as they celebrate their 150th anniversary, as well as educate a lot of great students there. We'll be back in a moment with a second Beyond the Front Page with the Auburn Public Theater's Artistic Director, Angela Dodabo, and Executive Director, Carrie Idell, for an update on the Auburn Public Theater, as well as their recent award of Regional Economic Development Council funds. On Thursday on Inside Government, we will be focusing with Auburn Police Chief Sean Butler, Sergeant Greg Dan, and School Resource Officer Chris Major to talk about last week's active shooter exercise at Auburn High School, especially in the wake of the Parkland shootings. And on Beyond the Front Page, we'll have Auburn Downtown Business Improvement District Executive Director Stephanie DeVito. Next Tuesday, we'll have on Inside Government the City Manager Jeff Dygert, who will give us an update, as well as Wasco Town Supervisor Ed Wagner and County Planning Director Steve Lynch to talk about what's going on in the Wasco watershed and their inspection process. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that if you have any thoughts or ideas for the show, you can give us an idea at cozguytho@aol.com or mail them to Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a good night. Stick around for another 30 minutes, but otherwise have a great tomorrow.